By the 9 and 4, welcome to the library. In today's entry we will be looking at the Cryterian Divine Patrons and founder of that nation, the family, in today's Divine Discussions, an Intro to the Realms mini-series. As always, this is just a brief look at this storied and quite historically active group of gods. Individual entries on each, as well as for Cryterian itself, will be coming in the future. The family also serves as a good bridge of discussion between the V's and the other mortal gods of the realms, and serves as an example of how some of the V's continued forward after their ascension. But before we discuss the family itself, a very brief overview of events leading to the formation and foundation of the family, which begins with the son of the Valor Damastus, Karthus Skychild. Karthus appears in historical records soon after the Valor's ascension to godhood, being the child of Damastus and an elven noblesse. Records indicate that he was active throughout the adventures of both the victors and the voids, but it was not until the coming of the vanquishers that Karthus was drawn into the battle against Vancin directly. It was during these adventures he met his future wife Renly, who had discovered that he was in fact a Christon. He had undergone the transference procedure sometime after reaching adulthood. Some say as a way to honor his grandfather, Corrin Skychild. After the vanquishers had slain Vancin and ascended to godhood, Karthus turned his attention to the foundation of what would eventually become Cryterian. He did this to grant the multitude of Christons that had been hiding across Jamamar a safe haven and homeland, as at the time Christons were seen as infiltrators or weapons of the Analar, who, as historical note at this point in their history, had not been brought to redemption by Her Majesty Genevieve. The fact also that various parts of a Christon could be sold for more than enough to feed a town for months if not years made their lives very dangerous if their true nature was ever discovered. Soon after the foundation of the Sky City state of Cryterian, with Karthus and his new wife Renly as its rulers, the kingdom celebrated the announcement of the birth of twin children, Verisar and his sister Fierstein Skychild. The royal family watched over and governed with a fair and wise series of policies and directives, turning the Cryterian nation into a technological powerhouse via Karthus' industrial and logistical acumen, paired with his son's prodigy levels of inventiveness. Fast forward several centuries, and you'll find Cryterian has been expanded to the size of a continent, and is now being ruled by the son of Fierstein, Calcin Skychild. You also see the universal acknowledgement as the family four as central figures in the Christon pantheon. Each of the family is looked to as protectors, aspirational figures, and role models for those in the kingdom, with each representing a different place or philosophy in different roles in society. These roles always serve as pieces to a greater whole, as the family exemplifies and encourages the values and benefits of cooperation of those different ideas and worldviews when combined towards a common goal. To begin, it is most obvious how the family is seen as guides to the home and family, with the mother Renly nurturing yet allowing the children to grow and learn, the father Karthus guiding and disciplining, the son Verisar being the child that grows in the full knowledge of the responsibilities that he grows to take on, and finally, the daughter Fierstein being the child that carries out her duties in her way, always for the greater whole's benefit, but rarely in the way to be expected. This is best exemplified by her usurping of the throne from out from under her brother, and the immediate installation of her son Calcin to the throne. While in many other cases, this would be a power play to snub her brother or some internecine conflict, with the family, and Fierstein in particular, it's never that simple. In fact, Her actions were to ensure that her brother would not be tied down to the throne when he was much better used to both the kingdom and the greater realms, unburdened by the day-to-day needs of running the nation. She has since been proven wise time and again on this point, leaving many gratefully annoyed by her actions. Moving on into the ways the family is followed in war or conflict, we see a shift in the ordering of things. We see the father as the god and embodiment of the common soldier, the uncommissioned, often seen as the ones who must do the dirty or grunt work of any conflict. The son, however, is the patron of officers, the commission, those who must see beyond the individual and to the needs of the campaign. The mother complements the father's position as a ground-level asset, but as the goddess of snipers, her aspect is towards the specialists, those warriors used in precisely calculated view. The daughter, however, maintains her aspects of creative problem-solving as the patron of the wild card, or lone wolf style of soldier, the ones you point in a direction and give a directive, and sit back to see how they manage to accomplish it. This fluid acceptance of the individual for how they fit into the day-to-day life extrapolates beyond the battlefield with similar roles in day-to-day life. With the father the patron of the general laborer, the mother a patron of specialists, the son being the patron of inventors or artists, and the daughter representing independent or jack-of-all-trades styles of workers. Always, again, greater as a whole than individually, these roles are the lattice of which Cryterian society was built and grown from. The final way that the family is typically referred to by their supplicants is that of the 4 forms of Cryterian personal combat doctrine. These are closely tied to the form of combat that Carthus is best known for and the derivatives thereof, the gun dance. Or perhaps it could be said that some of these were refutations or reiterations of that ancient style that Carthus resurrected and eventually perfected. From the father Carthus's original dual pistol wielding form, which is optimal for medium-range combat while retaining the ability to engage in melee using the pistols themselves to punish those who stray too close, is expanded by the son's gun and blade form, which vastly increases the melee capacity and defensive options, while remaining a threat for long-range combatants. The mother's combat form eschews the idea of even letting the foe see her, with its emphasis on long-range fire, yet it is mindful of the fact that sometimes the fight comes to you no matter what you do. As such, the followers of the mother's style are adept and quite ruthless with knives and other short, close combat implements. The daughter's combat philosophy, in the way that is hers and hers alone, forgoes any ranged component in lieu of the massive speed and mobility, relying on the preternatural awareness and reflexes of the form to get her within blade range, and ending the foe with very little sound or display with her dual swords, while deftly able to dodge, deflect, or indeed even reflect incoming attacks. The values of cooperation, loyalty, and constant striving to better oneself and your fellows is a key tenet of the family's philosophy. As the divine leaders of an ageless and nearly immortal race, boredom or apathy cannot be allowed to find hold in the heart of the Cryterian people. The ageless who grow bored often begin to find any way to relieve that most numbing of states, and very few enjoy what eventually has come up by a being that lives for thousands of years looking for something new. Thus, the family's values aid in preventing this from occurring too often. With this brief look at the family, we see an example of how the V's carried on after their victories and ascension to godhood, and began to build a life in the world they had saved, and were now the divine guardians of. Of course, other V's did so in their own ways, and with those ways having their own impact on the world and the histories to come. and we shall explore those in future episodes of Divine Discussions, an Intro to the Realms miniseries. For the time being, and until your next visit to the library, by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourself and each other.